Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. Today we continue our study of the Sefer Iyov, the book of Job. We are about to study chapter 37. In chapter 36, we heard Elihu, the fourth of the friends of Iyov, give us some interesting points, ideas that kind of shed light on this very difficult subject of theodicy, of why innocent people suffer, and God's ultimate justice. And 36, just as a reminder, because 37 is really a continuation of 36, it's kind of arbitrary where 36 ends and 37 begins. It's really just a continuation. So the ideas that he expressed in 36, I guess we can summarize. Number one, don't look at justice or our relationship with God as a transactional relationship, that I do something so that I can get something from him, and I don't do things so that he shouldn't punish me. It's not a transaction. That's not how it works. And he also says that, because we see that, God's ways are completely beyond our comprehension. We can't understand him. We can't understand why he does what he does. So therefore, we have to take the situation that we're in and use it as an opportunity for growth. Even in the worst possible situation of terrible, terrible suffering, we don't have a choice. We can't challenge God, but the only choice we have is to try to do the best with the situation that we have. And remember, Elihu is giving us points, ideas which are important and help get us closer to dealing with this terrible issue. However, an actual answer, it isn't. An actual answer is why people suffer is not. We don't have that answer. We never will have that answer. Hint, hint. Spoiler alert. But he does make points that are very important for us. Use the situation that you're in because you don't have a choice. That's where you are. So you have to use it. So let's continue to read in chapter 37, where he continues this point. And he begins, Af lezos yecharad libi, v'yitar mikomo. Mi mikomo. So the what this means is, because of this too, this idea that we can't understand, we can't explain God. There's no way we can possibly understand him, and therefore we have to try to use our suffering as an opportunity, right? My heart trembles because when I come to recognize this fact that I will never understand, and I have to accept it because that's just the way it has to be. And my heart will jump or leap from its place. V'itar is like to hop or skip. My heart will jump out of its place. Shimu shamoa beroges kolo. Here he begins to describe God's, the power, the awe, and the incredible things that God does, but more importantly, that we don't understand them. We don't see them. These are things that are beyond our comprehension. Now, many of the things he's going to describe nowadays with modern science, we have scientific explanations for them, but they still maintain this awe. In fact, the more we know, the more we appreciate how incredibly incredible and amazing and powerful the world is, and the world that God created, and the world that God runs, so to speak. Shimu shamoa birogas kolo. Listen up to the noise of his the trembling noise of his voice, v'hegemi piv yetzei, and the sounds that come from his mouth. Specifically, imagine the thunder, lightning. Tachas kol hashamayim yishrehu. He beneath all of the heavens. He puts it out. All of his voice, all of his power comes out, and he puts out to this world. V'oro, and his light, or his lightning, al kanfus haaretz, to all the corners of the earth. Remember that in the minds of the people, of the speakers here of Elihu, right? It's a geocentric world. So the earth is the world, and it's surrounded by the heavens. So everything, the entire heavens, is spread out, and the power and the might of God coming through the thunder and the lightning onto the earth. Acharov, this is verse 4. Acharov yishag Kol Yareim Bekol Gaono. After he sends out his sounds, right? In other words, after the light that he sends out all throughout the world, after that, the thunder comes. That's when Yareim Bekol Gaono, he screams out with the power of his might and his majesty, velo ya'akveim, and he doesn't hold them back, ki yishama kolo. And by the time his voice is heard, the light is gone. So this is a reference to the fact that the lightning comes first and the sound comes later, right? And this is something that we can't even understand, right? Now we understand that the speed of light and the speed of sound is different. And but then we're not talking in a time when they had a concept of sound waves or light waves. These were not concepts that were known. So the idea here is he's saying, just it's incredible how when God releases that light and then the sound comes afterwards, the sound, which is the lightning, which is making the sound, is gone by the time we hear the sound. Yareim el b'kolo niflos. God calls out or screams out with his voice wondrous things. Oseh gedolos v'lo neda. He does great, tremendous things. V'lo neda. That's the key words, and we don't even know it. We don't understand it, right? The idea that Elihu is getting to is that we can't understand. God is so mighty, so awesome, so powerful. Things that we cannot comprehend, we cannot explain, we cannot fathom, we cannot predict, right? So how do you think if the actions, the physical actions that we see of God, we can't explain, then how do you expect to explain why things happen to you as an individual or why things happen to a nation as a group? Things that we perceive of and we experience as punishments, as suffering. How do you expect to explain that is the point that he's going to be getting to as we go through this. But he's still in the middle of portraying this awesome, mighty God that we have no way to fathom. Kila sheleg yomar, to snow, he says, Havei aretz, go down to the ground, right? V'geshem, motar, and he tells the pouring of the rain, v'geshem mitrosuzo, his mighty downpour of rain. He also says to go towards the ground. Biyad kol adam yachtom, in the hands of all humanity, this is a sealed package. In other words, it's like in a safe that we don't know the combination to, that we can't open up. It's chatum, it's sealed, it's hidden from us. Lodas kol anshe ma'asehu, that people should know, the people that were created by him should know and understand what he's doing. All of these things that he does, we don't understand. Why does snow fall? Why does rain fall? We never understand this. And this is something that animals sometimes do understand. There's some wisdom in the world that they may have access to that we don't, because we know that the chayot, the animals, they will go into its cave, its shelter, the place where it lies in wait. All right, and it remains within its chambers because it knows that the rain is coming, but we can't see it, we can't feel it. No matter how smart we are, we can't predict it. Again, it's even now that we can predict it, well, not exactly, not accurately, but we have much better abilities to predict. But we still have this tremendous sense of awe and so much mystery behind it. Min hacheder tavo sufa, from the room where God stores the storm, so to speak. That's where the storm comes. Umimizorim kara. And the cold, which comes out of the constellations. They imagined that the cold temperature was coming from the constellations in the sky. Minishmas el yitain karach, from the breath of God, ice comes forth. V'rochav mayim b'mutzak, and the great the expanse of water is b'mutzak. Now, mutzak is usually a tight place, a squeezed place, a place where there's not a lot of room. So the understanding rochav mayim b'mutzak is understood in various different ways. I'm going to translate like the Mitsuros here, that when God gives ice, then all the expanse of water is now stuck underneath that ice. So the place the water that used to be active, that used to have waves and motion, is now stuck under the ice and like it's squeezed in tight in its place. Then the next verse 11, has af beri. These two words, af beri, is very difficult to translate. Most of the Mefarshim understand that the word beri here comes from the root of bara, which is clarity. But levror could also mean to choose or to pick. It could also mean, if it's bara with an aleph, it can mean to create. Some even understand af beri as the name of some sort of angel. So how to translate this phrase is difficult. I'm going to say the way I understand it in a second, but let me finish the phrase. Af beri, yatriach of, he piles up or fills up with thickness, right? Yafitz anan oro. He spreads out the cloud of his light, the clouds within which his light, the lightnings are, which is within the clouds. So yatriach of here is he fills the thickness of the clouds. So with af beri. So the way I understand this is I'm going to use the translation of beri is bara, as in clarity, as in clear, right? So af beri, even with the clear air, yatriach of, God creates clouds. So in other words, even on a clear day, right, God will still gather moisture from the air and make thick clouds, and then he will spread out. So in other words, you can go out in the morning and see a clear day, but God can, out of the clarity of the day, he can still make clouds and make it rain and spread the clouds, which then cause lightning to come. So this is just the incredible power of God. V'hu misibos mitapech b'tachpulosav l'fa'alam. And he keeps on for various reasons. His and with all of his plans, his tachpulosav, his plans and his ideas and his tachpulos, or his tricks, he turns things around and changes things from happening. Remember, the way I translated the last verse, he takes a clear day and makes it into a cloudy day. And in the same way, he does this all the time. When things are not necessarily expected, he makes things do makes things do what they do, right? Even when it's what's unexpected and we don't understand them, but for his various reasons, he does them. Kol asher yitzarveim, everything, so that that which he commands them al pnei teva arza, they should do across the entire land on earth, on the land. Im l'shevet, whether he is doing it l'shevet, as a punishment, a shevet being the stick representing with which he strikes, in la'artzo, or whether he is doing it for his land, in l'chesed, or if he is doing it as a kindness, a reward, yamtziehu, he will make it happen. Now this verse is really a powerful and strong verse, because what he's saying here is that sometimes maybe God might actually be doing it as a punishment, right? In other words, sometimes it's true that a person does bad or people do bad and therefore God punishes them. But also, im la'artzo, sometimes he's doing it for his land. In other words, he's doing it because that's the way nature works, right? Some things happen and they just happen. They're not necessary. They happen because God created the world in such a way. Many things that happen are not either a punishment or a kindness. We may experience them as bad or good, right? But that's not why they're happening. They're not happening to punish me. Not everything is about me. Remember, it's important to remember how Rambam in Moreh Nevuchim explains deeply. Not everything that happens in the world is for the purpose of human beings. Things that are done for many things happen for the sake of other creatures, other creations in God's world. And then the third thing, in l'chesed. So sometimes it could be a reward for us. So it could be a punishment, it could be just for the land, or it could be a reward. Yamtzeu. That's why God makes things happen. Ha'azina zos Eov, verse 13. Listen to this, Eov. Listen to this. He turns to Eov and says, Amod v'hisbonein niflaos el. Stand, stop, think for a while about the wonders of God. In other words, think about the wonders of God, and you'll recognize what I'm trying to tell you. Hateda besum Eloah alehem, right? Do you have any idea? Do you have any way of knowing at all what it is that what commandments, what pushes, what powers God puts upon them, meaning on all the powers of the world, of the powers of nature? V'hofia or anano, right? When he makes shine the lights or the lightnings come out of clouds. Do you have any idea? Do you understand that? Do you know that? No, right? Hateda miflashe of. Do you know on the greatness of the spreading out? Or I see the translation in the JPS translation, the expanse of the clouds, miflaos tamim deim, the wonders of the one who has perfect knowledge, right? The God, meaning, God's perfect knowledge. Do you have any idea why he does that? Why he spreads out the clouds? How he does that? No. Asher begodecha chamim, right? Why it is that our clothing gets warm, behashkit eretz midarom, when the south wind comes, the south wind, which in the Middle East would usually be a south wind, a chamsin coming out of the Sahara Desert area into the other parts of the Middle East, such as Israel and what's modern day Jordan, Saudi Arabia. They call it a chamsin, a hot wave coming out of the desert. Why does that happen? Tarkia imo lishchakim, right? Can you help God? Do you have any attachment to God? Do you have any ability? Are you able to go up there and help him out when he spreads out the heavens, right? Chazakim kireim mutzak, and he makes the heavens strong and solid like a sheet of shiny metal. Like a re'i is a mirror, which then was always made out of metal. And a sheet of shiny metal, that's how they imagined the heavens to be. They imagined the heavens were solid, within which the stars and the planets were embedded, and they were rotating in these big sheets of metal. Hodienu manomarlo. If you have enough knowledge of God that you can explain to us how he does these things, then tell us what we should tell God, right? But right, then we can go and challenge God. Then we can go and explain to God what we think should be and how he thinks he should do things. But no, you can't, you don't, and none of us can. God's greatness is beyond our ability. We can't help him. We can't understand him, and the things that he does, we have no way of understanding or predicting. Lo na'aroch, we cannot judge them mipnei choshech, because we are in darkness. We are separated from him. God is above us in the way that he is a tamim deim. He is the perfect knowledge. Our knowledge is completely different than his. Hayisupar lo ki adaber, right? Does anything get spoken to God when I speak? In other words, does God have any interest in what I say, right? Im omar ish ki yivula. Can a person say anything when he's confused? In other words, if first of all, God isn't interested in what I say, and if I did say something, right, I'm confused. I don't know anything. What can I say? I don't understand them. So what am I even going to say? Even if I could, if the atolo ro'u or bohir, hu bashchokim, and now, just like we cannot see the clear light of the sun when it is covered in darkness. In other words, because it's covered when the heavens are covered with clouds. And then a wind comes and clears the sky, and now I could see the sun. Mitzafon zahav ye'eseh al Eloah norahod. And because from the wind coming from the north, the golden rays of the sun are then come out and are revealed, right? And now that's because that's what clears the things. Al Eloah norahod, meaning it is the greatness of God is incredibly wonderful. Is incredible. Norahod is awesomely wonderful. So that kind of sums up everything that he just described, right? When the clouds conceal the sun, and all of a sudden the sun comes out in brightness when we have a shine of understanding and a shine of light. So Shaddai lo mitzanu sagi koach, right? God, we cannot find him. We cannot discover him. We cannot explain him. We cannot understand him. Sagi koach, he who has immense amount of strength beyond what we can comprehend. Umishpat v'rov tzedakah lo ya'aneh. And his justice and the greatness of his righteousness, again, tzedakah umishpat, tzedek umishpat, which are the two, really the theme which underlies the entire Tanakh, the entire Bible, which we've repeated over and over and over again, from Isaiah to Jeremiah to all the prophets, tzedek umishpat. That's which is how God manifests himself in this world, through justice and righteousness. Lo ya'aneh, he does not hold that back, or lo ya'aneh, he does not torture. He does not torture for no reason. There is tzedek, there is mishpat, but God's greatness is something that we cannot understand, we cannot explain, we cannot comprehend. Lachein, therefore, yireuhu anashim. That's why people are in awe of God. That's why human beings are in awe of him. Because when you look up in the sky, when you see nature, we are impressed, immensely impressed by it, but we can't understand it. The same thing when we experience things in this world, we experience them in a powerful way, but we can't understand it. Lo yireh kol chachmei lev. Those who are wise of heart, lo yireh, do not see, do not understand. In other words, those who claim to understand, this is like a straight out rebuke against the three friends of Eov, who claimed to understand why Eov was suffering. He was suffering because he must have done a sin. Elihu was saying, no, we don't understand the suffering. Don't think you can explain the suffering. Who are you? God's listening to you. He understands your speech. He cares what you think. No, that's not how it works. God is beyond our comprehension. He's beyond our understanding. And with this, Elihu completes his speech. We will next study chapter 38, where God will heed Eov's request for an appearance. Eov, who had been demanding God come and explain, God will come and explain. I'm not going to give away what God is going to say, but we have the privilege of hearing from God soon for the next several chapters, starting chapter 38. But this concludes all of the discussions between Eov and his friends, from which we have learned so much from this dialogue over these past many months that we've been studying this book together. Thank you so much for studying this work together with me, this chapter. Looking forward to studying the rest of Sefer Eov, and of course the rest of Tanakh that we haven't yet gotten to together. Have a wonderful day.